Hi guys. I'm gonna start this video just letting you know how much I miss you, and I hope you're all well and at home, helping mom and dad, following instructions, and keeping all your homework up, okay? I miss seeing you, but I really hope and trust in God that we will be reunited very soon at school. Um, so let's start with a little class. I hope you like my videos. I'm just trying for you to see my face and make a little resume about what we're talking about in this chapter. I did a little PowerPoint with some of the most important points of this following pages, but I really think we should talk about it a little bit more so you get a chance to read it from the book and to hear a little bit about me. Right? So let's talk about the people. Who are the people of this region? Who were the first to live there? You know, in the United States, the first people who actually lived there are called American Indians. In the Southwest, it was one of the biggest American Indians groups who started it. And it was also a lot of Mexican American living in this part. Why? Because the borders was very close, and so in this part, the Navajo and Pueblo were living in the Southwest by the year 1300. So during the 18,000s, most of what we know as Oklahoma was actually called Indian Territory. Indian Territory, it was a land that the government set aside for American Indians only, you know? For them to live there, to practice all the traditions and feel free to be who they were, because they were actually the first people to live there. It was their land, but the American government was helping them to keep themselves safe with their traditions. So many American Indians from different parts of the country were forced to move, so they were all in the same place to avoid a lot of other conflicts. So that's why they made this Indian Territory. But by the time of 1880s, the settlers, remember the settlers, the people who come from another place to live to a new part, they had come and set up cattle ranches all around the Indian Territory. So they told the government they wanted this Indian Territory for themselves. So the government, they were not going to take it away immediately or just ask the American Indians to give it back. So they gave the option to the American Indians to sell it to these settlers. So they started. There were some of them, not all of them, who started selling. There was kind of a conflict here, you know, because now the settlers were going to be right next to the American Indians. So it evolved in something else. So many American Indians sold a part of their territory in Oklahoma, what we know as Oklahoma now. But by the 1889, the government held a land rush. That is a race to claim that land that had once been the Indian Territory, you know, race. They had to rush and get there first and claim it as their own. There was not going to be money involved. There was not going to be any paperwork involved. It was going to be about who was faster to set that land as their own. So over 50,000 settlers entered Oklahoma in one day to be available to claim that territory as their own. So many of these American Indians live in the Southwest, well, still live in the Southwest, but they live on reservations in the region. Remember the reservations, what land set aside by the government, the most modern government, to let the American Indians live now without being forced to sell or to move out or to anything. Those calls are reservations or land set aside for the American Indians to feel free after all of this, what was going on. So they live in this part of the country in one of the biggest reservations of all of it, because it involves it's called the Navajo Reservation, and it involves New Mexico, Arizona, and Utah. Not all of it, but it takes a part of everything, so it makes a very big reservation. So it's actually the largest of the country. So when we talk about the Southwest region, we hear a lot of Spanish words like Arizona or New Mexico. And it's because in the 15,000s, there was people coming from Spain to this part of the country. And they built colonies in New Mexico by the 1598, more than 20 years before the Pilgrims, you know. So the Spain colonies were there first, then the Pilgrims, huh? Who would have thought? But Thanksgiving became a bigger celebration for the American people. Remember, we talk about the big feast they make to give thanks because of the American Indians teaching the Pilgrims. Well, there was other people who came first, and they made another colony. So there was a lot of Spanish people, speaking people there because of this, because there was people coming from Spain or taught by colonists coming from Spain way before this. So yeah, about 150 years ago, most of the Southwest was part of Mexico as a colony of Spain. Today, Mexican Americans make up almost 1/4 of the population, you know. If you divide it in fours, like one of these fours, it's Mexican Americans. That's why there's a lot of Spanish speaking people there. So yeah. When we talk about the people, we need to talk, where do they live? Like, we know they live in the Southwest region, but you know, there's always bigger cities, or yes, bigger cities, because the states are all bigger. But there are bigger cities or cities that are very well developed that make more opportunities to people to actually come live here. So we know that in this part of the United States, there's a lot of deserts. There's not much water, but most of the people lives in cities. For example, San Antonio, it's in Texas. It's by a river on the Texas plains. So it began as a farming village. So they were not living like right next to each other because they needed a lot of land to be available to have a farm. There's Houston, that it's also on a river, and Houston is one of the biggest ports of the country because it has a direct connection to the Gulf of Mexico, and the Gulf of Mexico connects to the ocean. Remember, we talked about this when we were talking about the biggest ports of the country. And in this part, we can actually find out that they needed big ports because they actually became they found out they were very rich in oil. So this is one of their biggest business. They needed to take out the oil out of the Southwest to many other cities. We also have Tulsa in Oklahoma, that it was an American Indian farming village, but after oil was discovered, it became the biggest business center. There's more than 350 oil companies that have their offices there, and they make all the hard work and they put it in big ships and they sell it all over the country and to many other places. Some of the southwestern cities were built near all roads of trails. They have been used for travelers for centuries. The city of Albuquerque was actually built along a road. So later a railroad was built across New Mexico. And now Albuquerque has become one of the biggest cities in the States. So yeah, guys, when we talk about the people, we don't only say, oh, just because they're from Texas. No, there's a lot of more big roots about it, because if you think about it, we just said that there are a lot of Spanish speaking people because even before the Pilgrims, there were other colonies from people from Europe who were coming to our continent, and like teaching all of the traditions and settling in their land, like the people from Spain who had their colony in New Mexico, and the American Indians had to adapt and move around what was going on in the country. But the government did recognize how much of importance they have in their history because they're the first ones, and that's why they set the reservations. So they are still safe and they can evolve with history and with modern times, but keeping what they have as their own. Because in this part of the country, you can find different kind of university, college, schools who teach modern stuff next to the traditions of the American Indian people. So that's what we have for today about this part of the chapter. Don't forget, if you haven't, just fill in the questionnaire that I sent you and take your time to read the PowerPoint. There's a few of these points there, and it's gonna help you to keep it fresh. So every time we talk or next time we have a little chat about it, you remember everything we said. Keep it safe, stay at home, do your homework, and be nice to your parents. I send you a big hug, and I miss you guys. Bye.